everyone. My name is Ellen Mattesi, and I am the director and owner of Black House Artists, which is where most of you your beautiful art is up on right now. And this show that we're running, Women Defining Our Representation, for me was an important show to start this new venture with, just because of where things are at right now, especially for those of you that are in the United States and other places too. And even though I have been around and done a lot in the last 30 something years, Black House Artist is new, but it is what I consider to be my legacy project. I began it with the intention of trying to build something that will have a long-term impact on women artists. If any of you have been to my site, you may have read that obviously women's art has always been an interest of mine. But during the pandemic, I spent a lot more time reading, as I'm sure a lot of people did, and just started educating myself more with the history of women's art, even though I've gotten degrees and studied and taken courses and all of that. There just was this emptiness that I started to notice. And so then in turn from there, when COVID lifted and we were able to finally go out, I started traveling a little bit more and going to different art markets and paying attention to how many women artists were in those fairs or not in those fairs. And I noticed more and more that I was surprised how few artists there were. It's shocking because it's a different time and you would think it wouldn't be a big deal. But to go into an art fair and see where galleries are coming in from all over the world and maybe 20% of the artists that are being shown are women is still just not good enough for me. Good enough. So that's one reason that I'm doing this. The other reason is that I find, however you define yourself as a woman, I find that women artists, they aren't necessarily doing work about being a woman artist, but there's a perspective and there's a history that comes with being a woman. I don't know if any of you watch or follow TikTok, where they've had that question recently where they're like, would you rather be in the woods with a man or with a bear? And most women are, I'd rather be with the bear because at least I could see the bear coming and I know what it wants. But with the man, I don't know what it wants. And not to attack men by any means, but it's just funny to me that there are questions and there's an existence that you have, I believe, when you're a woman that just can't really be understood by someone who isn't a woman. I talk about this with my husband a lot too, just the simple idea of, I explained to him just the idea of going out into a parking lot if I'm at the supermarket and it's at night, the way I hold my keys, that I walk in the center, that I'm constantly glancing and back and forth in between the cars, that I park under the light. And he has looked at me and said, I don't even know what you're talking. I can't even imagine having that kind of mentality. So that's just one little example. There's motherhood, there's the economy, there's jobs. There's so many different elements that impact your art, whether it is about the experience of being a woman or not. It impacts what your story is and what you want to say, what you want to communicate to people. And so to go back to the theme, women defining a representation, I wanted to start there because it is a very difficult thing to define. And I'm not even sure that it can be defined in any less ways than there are women on the planet, because it's such an individual experience. So I am really honored that all of you sent your work in. I was blown away by the caliber and the skill and the frame of reference that all of you have in your work, the humility and the honesty. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. It was just this complete confirmation for me. Yes, this makes sense. This is what I was trying to do. This is what I want to keep doing. And I can't do it without you guys, without the artists that are willing to share the vulnerability that comes with the art that you are putting out there. So thank you, first of all. So with my website also, I am going to be adding, there's an education section with books that I think everyone should try to read to educate yourself about women's history in art, because knowing the history makes a big difference when you're trying to work within that community and sell your work and get into that art world. I'm not saying you have to be perfect and know every single detail, but to get the general idea, it's important to know. You have to have some idea of what you're conversing about, and in order to back up opinions when you say, women's art matters. I also wanted to show, so in the last newsletter, if most of you have gotten it, I'm not sure. One of the things I put in there was I put a book of the month, which this can't be a book of the month because it is meaty. Like it is, this is the book that I put in there, and I'm reading it and I realized this is not the book of the month. This is like the book of the summer. This is such an intense book. This is huge. It's like such an important time of when women artists really they had this important role. It wasn't recognized necessarily at the time, but these women changed a lot. So I definitely recommend you reading that book, and we'll have a little like book club thing at the end of the summer if you want to join. Also on there, I'm planning on putting some more marketing materials, some more contracts for people to use when they want to sell their art. Definitely some more interviews. We did an interview recently with Laura Brody about her work, and she has some art calls coming up that are really interesting, which you can look at on the site. And I just want to be able to bring more opportunity. So in no way am I trying to compete with your gallery representation, or I also want that too. I want more curators to notice us and gallery owners to notice us, because it's not about me taking that. My goal is not necessarily to sell the art out of the gallery's hands. Do I want to sell the art? Yes, I want to sell the art, but I want to sell it because it brings up your value. And it's more for you to put on your CV. It's more clout for you to have when you go and approach these galleries. So yes, these are all goals that I have. And yeah, I think also definitely more opportunities where we can look at practice and process. There's a lot I have on my calendar that's going to be coming up. So I'm looking forward to having all of you guys join me for that. All right, so let me start here. I'm going to go right from the website because this is really the best way to show this. Just give me a second. Okay, so this is our website. You've probably been there. And if you want to send someone here to see the work, there's a little bar at the top. I'm going to leave that while this show is up. And this was basically the beginning of us women defining our representation. As most of you read the call, but for anyone who didn't read the call or who is joining for a friend, this show, it's an exhibition of 31 pieces from 31 artists, celebrates the multiplicity of women's identities, individuality, complexity, and worth. It inspires reflection, understanding, and empathy for the diverse and authentic experiences of women by acknowledging accomplishments, reclaiming narratives, exploring gender expression, and sharing personal realities. All different parts of being a woman artist. So we're going to start, and this one's I'm excited about this. So the prize winner from our show is Joanie, and I'm going to make sure, is it Krug or Krug?
It's Krug.
It's Krug. Okay, I was hoping so. So I must tell you, this was hard. Choosing a winner was hard because all the pieces are so damn beautiful. You can see it, right? Just want to make sure my screen. Okay, good. So I normally, if you look at my fine art from when I was younger, it is so Gen X. It is so angst ridden. There's like gangster rats and violence in the streets. And it is just, and I'm always attracted to that kind of work. And so my first instinct is to always go for that kind of thing. Obviously getting a little older and feeling like I've got a little more nuance going on, I try to really stop that instinct when I'm curating or judging a show. mostly because there's so many different aspects as to how you can interpret this. Joanie, what I want to do is, just because we're starting with this one, I'm curious to just have you speak for a minute or two and maybe tell us a little bit about the work. I also know that you sold this piece and your buyer is here. So I'd love to hear from her too, just for a minute, as to what she saw in the piece. And then I will definitely tell you what I thought pulled this all together.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's a thrill to be here and sharing this experience with you all. And thank you again for recognizing my piece the way you have, Ellen. It's very exciting. So my work has always been very gestural and figurative, mostly. I was not trained officially in art school. I've taken lots of different workshops. And as I told Ellen the other day, my practice really took off in a different level during COVID. And I got to do some Zoom online workshops that were just mind-blowing for me, really opened up lots of doors. And my work very often has to do with women and women relationships and connecting women. And this was part of a body of work. I'm part of a collective in Portland, Oregon called Gallery 114. And I had a show last September, and there were a series of pieces where women were leaping, jumping, flying, doing all these aerial kinds of activities and relying on each other to have those things happen in a very freeing and energized way. So this piece is part of that. And my process is one where I may come up with an idea initially, but it takes on many forms before it lands on its final version. I have a reputation of spending time on a piece and then painting over it after a month of working. And I sometimes and often use the underpainting as part of the final product. As you might notice, there's some elements here that came from a prior lifetime, which I appreciate. I'm part of a critique group that I've been doing for several years through Winslow Art Center in Bainbridge Island. The artist that runs it is an artist in Sonoma, Gage Ogenbrow, and we meet every other week and we bring new work in. And he also has had a huge impact on my work and my practice in inviting all of us as participants, but particularly for me, looking at other work, looking at other people's work, looking how my tendency is to be more abstracted. I'm not interested in realism. I want to have a gesture and emotion in a more abstractive form. So I've been working hard on that. I've been working hard on integrating my figure into the environment of the canvas and not just making it a portrait focus. So I feel like I'm in the middle of the journey or beginning of the journey even, and I'm just going on. I'm keep at it.
Excellent. Yeah, there's so many beautiful aspects of this, which especially you're talking about the work being underneath and working on top. I thought that was really interesting too. So your buyer, Adrian, is also here. I'd love to hear what attracted you to the piece.
Hi. Yeah, I'd love to share. I was just so drawn in, and I just felt like this piece was really made specifically for me. I'm propelling myself into the world of women's transformational coaching and supporting women in a whole new way. And I just feel like this painting in so many ways embodies that. There's the playfulness, there's the physicality, there's like the sisterhood represented. And I just feel like we have something you speak to with your collective, the Black House Artist, is that a lot of our capacities as women aren't fully supported, and because our capacities are undervalued and not understood, or all these things. Anyways, I just feel that changing, and I feel like this painting is, for me, a representation of that.
Fantastic. I'm glad it inspired you so much when you saw it. For me, I definitely picked up on that, the playfulness and the just the livelihood of it. What I think I really felt in choosing this piece, I felt it was a piece that was a good unifier for the entire show. As I said before, I do love to get into the angry, angst-ridden pieces. Love that. I'm a huge fan of Sue Coe, or oh goodness, there's just so many people that have that kind of angry work in it, and I love that. I get sucked right up into that. But what I liked about this was, first of all, the skill is beautiful. It's a very skilled piece. You understand your material just from that aspect. You understand your medium. You understand how to control it. Nothing's overworked. It's there's so much movement in this one snapshot of what's happening. I also love that, yes, I realize that the woman on top is probably, a young white woman, but doesn't necessarily affect what's happening in this work. It can be two different races. It could be two friends. It could be a mother and daughter. And so it speaks to a lot of different people. What I really love is that their exuberance and the life that they're showing, the energy that they're experiencing here is purely for themselves. It is not anti anything. And I'm anti a lot, but I really am. But this piece, it's as if there is nothing to fight. And so it is just pure joy and exuberance and enjoyment in the moment, which ideally, I think, is what the experience of being a woman should be, or anyone who is oppressed in any kind of way. The goal, right? The goal is really to not have to take on all of the extra junk that gets thrown at you from the outside, and just to be yourself and enjoy life and be. And so I think that's what I liked about this, is that I feel like whether you are of a certain race, of a certain religion, of a certain age, that you get this. This is the ideal. Wouldn't this be amazing if we could just do whatever feels physically and emotionally exciting and impulsive and not have to take on all the garbage that comes with it? And so that's why I really like this piece. It felt like a unifier to me. And I think it's beautiful. I really do. Thank you again for submitting it. And I'm so happy that you bought it. And I'd love to see where you put it. You'd have to send a picture in so I can see where you put it, Adrienne. But it's a great piece. And so thank you. Thank you for submitting it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm gonna need glasses for this because there's details I have to read and I can't read anything this close. So let's see. I'm gonna go in order through the show. And if you're here, if you're an artist that's here, just let me know and you can talk about your piece a little bit. If the artist is not here, I'm certainly willing to talk about these pieces. I'll go back to these pieces later. I'll explain them, but I want to make sure the people that are here have time to talk. So we're going to go through those first, but I will definitely tell you about the piece one by one. Okay, so the next piece, I love this piece. So this is Heidi Bruckner. I think it's called, if I pronounce anything incorrectly, which I probably will about 70% of the time, just correct me. I think it's Dracana. And it's oil fabric, paper, and buttons on recycled bubble mailers, which I'm so groovy and cool. I love that. And what I liked about this too was this is just a person just being, and my God, there's so much history there. Like this is the woman you want to read. Please, you want to say, please write 10 books before you go, because I want to know everything that happened. So I think Heidi was here. Heidi, you're here. Okay, great.
Yes, I'm here.
Good.
Can you hear me?
You want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure. So everybody, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Oh, I've been so enjoying hearing this so far. So thank you so much, Ellen, for bringing us all together, and just really was very interested in the last piece and all the pieces in the show, and agree that last piece was just a wonderful unifier of the theme. Just so happy to be among you. I am from Oakland, California, and I'm a figurative painter. Most of my work is life-size, so this is quite a large piece. And I started to turn to portraiture after many years away from portraiture, and it started to happen during the time of COVID. And again, I think just a need for socialization and appreciation of others in the world. And I think in a broader sense, portraiture is a way of understanding ourselves. And my work tries to invite the viewer to participate in indulging that curiosity. And I think of these as individual narratives that explore different expressions and self-presentation and gesture. And I often try to focus on individuals that may be under revered or not necessarily in the mainstream. And so this woman is, the series initially was focused on friends and family, and then it started to widen into inspired images inspired by travel photography. I own my own travel photography. And so this was a woman who I met in a very tiny, we might say humble village in China, just outside or just nearby the Great Wall. And like I said, it was a very humble place. She saw me and was very interested in me and waved me over, and weren't able to communicate verbally really, but she was just such a lovely soul. I could tell immediately. One of the only things she had was this cushion that she was sitting on outside her little house, and she offered it to me. And this was when I was quite a young person, and she was quite advanced age person. And I just thought that gesture was so lovely, and I just thought of her as being this really beautiful, wonderful, soulful human being. So I'm glad that, Ellen, that you were able to somehow imagine that too. And so I named it Dracaena. One reason is because of the symbolism in Chinese culture of the dragon being a powerful and auspicious symbol, and also because of the Dracaena plants, which are in the background there, which are mixed into some existing wallpaper. And so there's a lot of, just to go into materials a little bit, that all of this is made from recycled materials like a substrate, which I've painted and collaged on top of. And I've been exploring three-dimensional aspects of the work as well, beyond square, but also molding fabric and then painting on the fabric. So the legs in the foreground from the knees down are actually a sculptural part of the piece. But I'll end there, and again, just saying that I thought she embodies a very powerful, soulful female human being that I very much revered. So thank you.
You're welcome. I just thought it was, like you said, it was just a beautiful piece. And when I see women that look like this, I have so much, I don't know, I have so much reverence. Since I've moved up to this area, my neighbor Sue is probably the one person who I've met here who I connected with this, and she's 83 years old. And we are like sisters. I don't know what it is about older women that I just want to like suck their brains in. I just want to know everything they know. I want to learn about all the mistakes. I want to know everything they felt. I love narrative in art. And so this piece for me was just so beautiful and like the dream. Everybody wants to grow old enough to be this woman, right? And then on top of that, for me too, if you put pattern and incredible material, bubble mailers, I thought, oh my God, bubble mailers, it never occurred to me. It's just got so much going on that represents history and also elements that are very modern. It's just a beautiful piece. I think it's a great piece. And it's available. A lot of these pieces are available. That's another thing. I really encourage everyone to invest in art. It is worthwhile, and think about investing in women's art. It's so great when you pick something that really speaks to you and you put it up on your wall and you see it every day. And I have so much that I've been collecting recently, and it just makes me so happy. I literally have the size house I have to hang things on the walls. Otherwise, there's no reason for me to have this size house. It's stupid. It's just ridiculous with only one 21-year-old daughter still here. But I need the wall space because I just need to hang things up and look at them. So I encourage that. So this is really a beautiful piece. So thank you so much, Heidi. It's great. Okay, let's see. Next one is Joan Ryan, Swan Dive. And this is 38 by 42 inches in oil. I don't know if she is here. I don't see her, but I love that this piece I love too. I also do have a little soft spot for surrealism, and I love all of the different elements that are touched on here. Again, narrative for me, I'm a sucker for narrative. And there's so much to dig into here. Everything from the woman from the 50s with the vacuum to what looks to me like maybe a 12-year-old with a rifle in the back. It's just, there's so much going on here. And again, there's so much story, and I love this piece. It just spoke to me. So that's why I really was attracted to this one. Our next piece, Suzanne Barton, Through the Looking Glass 2. Now this is she calls it photographic fine art. And I love the surreal aspect of this. And I always appreciate when someone does photography because I am not very good at it at all. I don't think Suzanne is here. No, I don't think so. But to be able to take something like photography and then take a piece that's really a story, fairy tale, and such a crazy fairy tale too. Interesting, just a really beautiful, interesting piece, beautifully done. And I love this. So that's why I was attracted to this piece by Suzanne. Okay, this one is Eileen Feeney Bushnell. I don't think it's...
I'm here.
Oh, she's here. Great, you're here. Okay, Novice Choice and intaglio and screen print. So I would love to hear, there's a lot going on in here. I'd love to hear about your process and definitely the inspiration too, but definitely the process just looks so beautiful and complex.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here. It's great. I teach printmaking, and that's been my primary area of work and scholarship for quite a while now.
Mhm.
This piece was motivated by a conversation I had with one of my graduate students. I teach at the Rochester Institute of Technology, and Nava, came from Iran. Her parents and sister are in Tehran. And when Mahsa Amini was arrested and killed by the police, and it generated all of those protests in Iran. It was a really difficult time for her. And so she said that in her life, she had to make a decision that either she could have her family or she could have her future. And so she decided on her future. She's in fact applied for refugee status in this country. The things around the figure are the things that are generated. The water is actually a map of Iran. It's got a topographical map on top of it. They're hanging a lot of the men who were involved in the protests from these construction trucks. The Siberian crane is an endangered bird in Iran, and the rose is important too. Where I completed information is my interest in the everyday. This was something that happened in the everyday, and the child is actually my granddaughter, and my daughter, son-in-law, and grandchildren are Black. And at this point in time, politically, it's very dicey. I'm very afraid. I want them to have a future. I want them to have opportunity at this point in time. And so all of the things that Nava had really been working for, women's rights and the ability to do artwork. She does nude women. She cannot go home. She would be arrested right away. And watching my granddaughter grow up, move together in this piece. I try to work intuitively with printmaking, think about what processes give me what effects as I move along. I try not to plan out every single thing ahead of time. I try to let it be a self-responsive process as I go through, and I mix all kinds of media. It depends on what it actually is. Some of it's photographic, some of it's hand-drawn. So.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. There's so much to this. I'm so glad you explained. There's so much going on that even I see is symbolic, but didn't necessarily understand every bit of what was happening, like the endangered bird and all of that kind of thing.
I don't think that's critical. I think it's a matter of everybody taking what they want. For me, it's important to speak a language that reflects
right,
where things are meaning.
right. And there's an optimism in seeing this young girl, this very young girl, and yet a little bit of intimidation also, having the other elements in here. There's a lot to take in. It's just a really complex, beautiful piece. And it's interesting, you mentioned before also the artist that does figures basically cannot do it in her own country because she does nudes and all of that
Right.
isn't allowed. It clicked for me. I wrote an article on the site. My husband, Michael, has a figure drawing theory and a bunch of books. And so he's been teaching figure drawing for decades. And we met in college. And when we were in college, there was nothing to having any nude figure in the studio when we were studying. Now, when he teaches, most of them need to be clothed, not so much in his own classes. He doesn't do it for that. But when he goes to other colleges, people have to be partially clothed because supposedly it is to respect other cultures. My opinion of that is that I think if you're in this country, the whole point is that you have the choice. And if you're looking to study and go study the human figure, you should have the option on your own as an adult, men or women. But that even something as simple as learning the human figure is being constricted right now. So it's interesting. I wonder if she's being affected by that too. But yeah, there's a whole story. It's like this is like the beginning of a story and you don't know what the ending is going to be. It's really interesting. So thank you so much for submitting it. I'm glad there's so much history to it also. It just brings out so much in it. So thank you very much. Okay, let's see. Next piece. These are all, I love hearing the stories behind these. They're fantastic. So this is Keisha Finnie, who I don't think is here. No, I don't see her name. Obviously, I love the strength in this one. I love the vibrancy. I love that it had this very like somewhat impressionistic kind of style on top of this graphic background. And it's just seeing a beautiful, strong woman, I think always makes for such a beautiful image. And this one is done so vibrantly and so beautifully. So that's why I was really attracted to this one. Let's see. Okay, Suzanne Eller. Oh no, hold on, don't jump. There we go. Suzanne Eller. I don't know if she's here. I don't see her name. Obviously, a reference to Handmaid's Tale, if anyone has watched that. It's called I Am Not Your Handmaid. It's Assemblage 3D sculpture piece, which I love Assemblage. I think it's great when you can pull elements from different facets of life and put them together in a piece. And Assemblage, along with obviously textile, has been hugely popular in the last 10 years in particular in the fine art world. And I think this is really beautifully done and balanced and natural and yet colorful and represents something that's really timely. So this piece for me was just beautiful to look at.